What's up? How are things, Felicia?
Good. I'm Felicia. Here in the Bay, making art, living through the pandemic.
That's real. That's real. So yeah, we first met in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you were close-knit with my crewmates.
Yeah.
Yep. Before I even knew who you were, and you were already family before I even knew that. And then Santa Fe Indian Market is when we really connected.
Yeah.
I love your art. I love your color palette.
Thank you.
You can definitely tell it's desert vibe.
Yeah, it comes out for sure.
When did you start this style? When did you start painting?
I mean, this in particular, like I guess my sort of niche or my style, I would say about 10 years ago. I was about 25 when I moved to the Bay. You know, I did a little bit of experimenting. I was just out of college a couple years. You know, the Bay Area has a nice cultural vibe and sort of mix between like graffiti and murals and like, you know, the like mission cultural, like the Spanish murals and stuff like that really hit home with me. And I think moving away from New Mexico kind of made me nostalgic for the desert and like my own roots. So it kind of it all kind of came full circle. I feel like I was fiddling around with this in college, but it was a little too contrite and like didn't quite have it yet. So eventually I kind of just fell into this sort of work, and it just kind of evolved. A lot of it was early on, like just a lot of women figures, and then I kind of started branching out and trying to do like more like mosaic, like abstract, like sort of the animal pieces and things, kind of get a little bit broader horizon in terms of what I was depicting, I guess you could say. So yeah, yes. It's been about 10 years.
Wow, I love it.
And you're from New Mexico?
Yeah, from Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
I went to college in Albuquerque. Studied fine art, wasn't like fine art school really though. UNM's kind of like, meh. But it was free, so you know, no debt. Live and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So roots, obviously indigenous roots.
Yes. Spanish, Mexican, and Native. My grandpa's side is Choctaw, Chickasaw, a little bit of Mohawk. Mom's side is like a lot more Spanish roots. There are some Native, like, but they were never like registered with their tribe or anything. So it's like, they think a little bit of Taos Pueblo, but then, you know, during colonization got pushed further north, became more like Spanish, I guess, in that sense. And on my dad's side, I really don't know. They claim to just be Spanish, but that's New Mexicans for you.
Right.
We're not Mexican, we're Spanish.
Yeah.
Especially in northern New Mexico.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely I'm Choctaw. Like I said, that's mostly where my indigenous roots are from, that I can gather to my knowledge.
I get a lot of calm feeling from your art, a lot of healing energy. I see, you know, hearts, hands open. It's very serene.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because one time at Indian Market, a woman came up to me and she was like, I want you to paint me some jackets. She's like, but your work's a little dark. And I was like, what? How do you get dark from all these figures? Like praying hands, like, you know, I don't know, the color palette, nothing about it seemed, but I was like, well, maybe the women figures are always a little pensive. But I don't know, I think that's like how artists kind of are, you know, like I almost feel like when you paint people as an artist, a lot of time they're not like, you know, it's not like some cheese factor. It's like you're thinking about something, you know, when you're painting.
Right.
So I think that demeanor can reflect, obviously, in your work. Just, I don't know, half the time people try to take photos of me, I'm like, I'm smiling, right? And they're like, kind of not really. And I was like, God damn it. I swear I was smiling. But yeah, I do like my color palette, I feel like reflects that a lot. It's a lot of that pastel, like desert, you know, a lot of nature and the animals, sort of that tote between like mystic and mystical and natural elements of, you know, Mother Earth. So that's kind of what I feel like I try to relay in my work, which I guess could translate to that sort of healing vibe. So yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so through the last year, how has it been? What have you been doing to keep inspired and to you know just take care of
it's been a little rough.
That creative process, keep that alive? Like what?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky with all the murals that I was doing because I didn't get cooped up inside.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So even though it was, you know, at some point seemed a little like, am I going to get in trouble? Or the cops going to come run up me because I'm supposed to be inside or whatever? You know, us artists didn't really know if it was like technically legal for us to be, you know, because it's quarantine. So we're like, you know, and so I took a good month off from finishing one that I had just started, like right when they shut down. Because I was like, I don't know, you know, everybody's freaking me out. And it was kind of like the Wild Wild West for a while. Like people were just like running amok, like looting and right, you know, and then there was all the BLM movements out here. So it got a little dicey for a minute. Even when I started, I kind of felt guilty about like having the privilege to get paid to go out and like make these murals while people were like protesting, you know. There was like definitely like am I doing what's right? Like, should I be doing more? Like, is my art enough to like help, you know, like curb the urban blight or like, you know, make something pretty for the public to like look at. So it was definitely like, I had a little bit of a, what would you say, like quandary quarrel with my own self about that. But then again, I just, you know, the art really is what kind of kept me going. Not having to be stuck at home with these roommates that I had that were crazy. And then, you know, just, like I said, being able to create and be outside and feel like there was a safe space for me to do that, even though times were a little dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I just work, really. Well, I try to work out. It doesn't work out very well. I'm like, I did 3 push-ups, I'm sore.
Show me paint the fence.
Right, exactly. Well, dude, painting the murals, man, like
straight up
and down those ladders, like
straight
sideways,
up.
Holding a bucket. Like I've painted on everything under the sun this last year, you know, scaffolding and like going up and down with buckets of paint. Like I painted like a 40-foot by 30-foot wall on scaffolding all by myself. Like, and you know, being in a lift, that's a luxury, but being on scaffolding, you're like, well, okay, what's your step? I mean, I had a harness, but still, it's like, okay, what if there's an earthquake? I'm in the bay. Just all dangling from the scaffolding. But
nice.
So art is kind of what keeps me going mostly, I would say. Yeah. You know, staying busy.
Yeah, right? So you used to B-girl back in the day.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Straight up.
What was your B-girl name?
To be honest with you, it's been so long I can't even remember. But our crew was like, we had a B-girl crew. We were called Fresh. And then we also were in another crew called 3HC, which was like Harambe and Santa Fe.
Yep.
It was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
We used to host practices on linoleum in my aunt's garage. And I was mostly like a style move, power moves. Like I could do flares and like all the weird bendy stuff. So that was when they'd throw me in and be like, go battle that girl or that person because you can do this. It wasn't like a long career. It was like basically junior high through like high school, and I kind of fell back into art and was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with art. I'm getting a little too old. No, now though, I tried to break dance like at a work party or vaccination party last Sunday. It was so embarrassing. I was like, what? They egged me on so bad that I did it. And I was like, I'm so embarrassed. And of course they sent it to everyone. And I was like, no.
That's dope.
Clowning.
Super fresh.
Yeah, that was a good stint.
Nice, nice.
So big girls like music, right?
They do. For sure.
Oh yeah, this one. Actually, one of my new favorite songs I actually just found the other day.
Oh, yo, please share.
Yes.
Let's see. It's called, just make sure I get service here.
I feel like there's a lot of dance movement in the hair.
Yeah, the hair
flow.
flows for sure. I mean, that's honestly, I mean, a lot of my, like, this is one of the oldest pieces I've actually had in the studio.
Yeah.
And actually, I did a version of that on that building I was telling you in the city. It's like a huge version of that.
Yeah.
Like 40 by 30 foot. But yeah, a lot of the older pieces of women I did, a lot of the hair was very much like, yeah, kind of flowy dance. It's interesting how art works like that. Gotta have the balance. So, do you want me to play or just show it to you?
Go ahead and read off the artist and the name.
All right, so this one is the newest one I like, called Unholy War by Jacob Banks. There's a Never Go Back by Dennis Lloyd. I'm not gonna lie, I've been re-listening to a lot of Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac, of course.
Yes.
Let's see what else is on here that I've been going old school a little bit.
If you were to use one song to describe your art, like what would be a song that would really aesthetically like fit?
I know.
Or like if you were like throwing a show, you know, like a Felicia, a show, your art show, like what would you play? Like, what would that vibe look like?
You know, it'd probably be a bunch of weird oldies, like,
Wow.
or Rod Stewart.
That's dope. Turn the chair
I'm a
around.
big fan of Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart's fresh.
Also, Tracy Chapman.
Oh.
Give Me One Reason. It's like
yeah.
one of my favorite songs since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Smooth Operator. So
Oh.
definitely some Sade.
Sade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yes, girl.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of. Yeah, I've been listening to old school stuff right now.
That's a dope vibe.
Some Rick James, you know.
Yeah.
Some Candy Rain.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's why.
I really love that you said that being in the Bay has really given you that perspective of your traditional upbringing, your traditional roots, and that's allowed it to come through into your art more so, and really like give it that perspective being out here. And almost like missing that essence.
It was like a nostalgic sort of like when I would go home, I was just able to absorb so much more of like what I felt, you know, growing up, being around, being different, like person of color, like growing up in a sort of pretty gentrified area. You know, Santa Fe's got so much money and wealth, but obviously minorities doesn't trickle down like that, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I grew up in the projects my whole life in Santa Fe. You know, mom died when I was really young. I lived on my own since I was 14. Put myself through high school, college. You know, so it definitely like makes you think about all that stuff when you go back home. Especially growing up with like a lot of rich white kids that like grew up there, but like their families aren't rooted there. You know, like my family's been there for hundreds of years.
Right.
Yep. That's respect.
So it's just a different sort of way of looking at it when you go home. You're like, oh, wow. But then also feeling the privilege of being, you know, sort of level-headed and strong enough to like put yourself through all that and like come back and like realize what you went through that maybe you don't think about until you get older. So, yeah.
That's why you're such a strong painter. You go hard. That's what's up.
Keep on
Yeah.
keeping on.
What if there was one thing that you would want to leave behind after you pass, as if it was an artifact? What would that be?
Ooh.
You know, it'd probably be my paintbrushes.
Oh, that's dope. I save my paintbrushes also when they get all crusty or you accidentally leave it.
All right. Yeah. Well, because I had, you know, when I was doing this, I was repainting this mural like a couple weeks ago in the Tenderloin that got tagged, and they stole my bag, and I was like, and I thought my paintbrushes were in there, and I was like about to cry. I was like, no, all my mural brushes. But luckily, I had already pulled them out because I had started to paint. But like a lot of my paintbrushes that I used to paint murals with are like old brushes from college when I used to do oil because they're so banged up. So a lot of like fine line ones, and there's like one in particular that I love to death.
Wow.
And I took it to Hawaii and it snapped, and like I whittled it down so that it wasn't all sharp and I could still use it. And I still have it. And I'm like, that's my favorite brush.
Aww.
But it's like you beat that brush up so much that you really can't ever get it again. You know, it's like, and you keep using it.
Yeah.
It's like,
it has a soul.
eventually you're going to have to retire it.
Right.
But it's like, you don't want to because you're like, I'm never, like, it's so banged up that like you got it to that place where it's perfect.
Wow.
But eventually you're going to have to, it's going to die. So that's always the sad part, is retiring them. You're like, no.
Wow.
I love that though.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would be, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a long-lasting artifact, but, you know,
Yep.
it'd be kind of cool.
That's
Maybe
real
my
cool.
shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, those shoes are dope.
Yeah, I took them to Sweden, and I was painting this massive mural, and I was on the lift like 40 feet in the air, and I had like a spray one that you put a quart on, and I didn't lock it in right, and it was like that top coral color kind of.
Yeah.
Thing fell and just, I was drenched in coral paint. I had to go all the way back down, go wash all it was everywhere, like just covered. I was like, are you kidding me, man? But I was just happy it didn't fall on the wall because I had already like started doing like the gradients, and I was like, that would have sucked so bad.
Wow.
I would have to go up and down with like a bucket of water to spray it down.
Yeah.
Which I did have to do once because it started raining, and that was not fun.
I feel like
Joys of painting.
if like gallons of paint don't fall somewhere, like in your
Yep.
car or, you know, like on you, then are
You ain't
really,
doing it right.
Yeah.
Totally.
You ain't really about it. You ain't
got
really
it
about
down.
that life.
When the 5-gallon of bucket falls in the back of your vehicle.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Every bona fide
Oh,
artist.
you know what? I would also leave my aprons behind.
Oh.
Those are pretty epic. I have one over there somewhere, but it's like my one that I paint with murals is just like, it's like crunchy
Yeah.
because it's got
That's
so much
dope.
paint on it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when I'm painting in the studio, I'm not messy, but it never fails with murals where you're just like, there's paint in my ear. Oh, one time I was buffing a wall and I had a ponytail on. And I just kept going up and down. And then by the time I got back to wherever, I was like, what the hell? It was like just so dried. It was like stuck together. And my friend's mom just used like hemp butter to like try to get it to come apart. But I had to cut out like so much hair.
Oh, wow.
Because it was like
Yeah.
practically, it was like real thick buff paint, almost like plaster, you know? And
Yeah.
it was so bad. I was like, why didn't anyone tell me? Like, you were standing right there. Like, I could have said, like, put your hair in the water real quick. It was just like a whole chunk just from like the ponytail going,
They probably thought you were painting with it.
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how she gets the technique. Those tiny little lines.
Yeah.
That's a mysterious technique.
For real.
You paint with your hair.
I mean, people paint with all kinds of weird stuff.
True.
My buddy's been attaching paintbrushes to like deer antlers he finds in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, you're just putting on a show now.
That's real.
But, you know, everyone's got their show, I guess.
Yeah. That's really real. That's really real. This one. Here we go. You think she's ready? She's ready.
She's ready.
Check this one out. If you had the world's attention, right? The whole world, all longitude and latitudes are pointing at you right now in Oakland, Faultline Artspace. You had the world's attention for 1 minute. What would you say?
Well, I would just say to, I guess, keep on doing your best, keep trying, pray, take care of yourself. Yeah, just, you're your own agent, I
Wow.
would say.
Yep.
And I like what
That's
you
real
said earlier about knowing your worth.
Yeah, you definitely need to, as an artist, for sure. I mean, in general, I guess, you know, if you want something from the world, you gotta bring it and sort of, like, you gotta show your worth. Otherwise, no one's gonna take you for that.
Yep.
Which is hard. You know, a lot of people ask me that about being an artist and how did you get started? And I'm like, you know, I asked for help. You know, I asked other studio mates, like, where do you get your business cards made? Where do you get prints done? Like, what kind of media, like, what do you think works best for this? Like, how much should I charge for a mural? Like, because asking your worth is really difficult as an artist sometimes, because people always want to be like, oh, wow, that's so expensive. You're like, do you know how many hours that took me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just throwing things out there into the world. Like, I'm sitting around doing research, thinking about it, like, trying to say something, you know? A lot of my work incorporates both of my heritage, being Spanish and Native, you know, and kind of touches on colonialism and religion and, you know, iconography. Doesn't necessarily mean like I'm overly religious. It's just entertaining both ideas and having a dialogue for other people to understand and try to recognize that we're all still here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout outs?
Yeah. Any shout outs?
Shout out to you guys.
Hey.
Yeah, Randy and
Jaylee.
Jaylee. Sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah, and Faultline, the Bay, New Mexico, indigenous people, artists, fan.
Shout out fam. Shout out New Mex.
New Mexico.
From the Bay Area, New Mexico. Hey, can we end it with this one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Felicia Gabaldon here in Oakland, California with Rep Your Tribe.